Guys, what I want you guys to do now is I want you guys to, we'll walk out in the hallway and we'll take a look at some that followed the rule of stopping the lines at the radiating pattern, all right? And we'll look at also at density. Again, Angie's got what I think is a darn good sort of start at that, okay? I'll also show you the examples of people that went to the next sort of step. So you guys all went through Design 1 with me or Hero, all right? And so you all learned about subtraction, right? And then you learned about aggregation and superimposition. So hopefully you remember those lessons. Because now I'm going to ask you two-dimensionally with these elements to perform sort of machinations or processes that are going to create levels of superimposition and that are going to create levels of subtraction within this thing. So I'll give you just sort of an example of what I'm asking for. So once again, we have this 16 by 18 piece, all right? And I'm going to ask you to do another one that can be partially based on this. And God knows you guys did not bring tracing paper, right?
Yes, we did.
Oh, we got people with trace paper, right on. I'm so happy.
I did like 3.
And they know a little better. So one of the things that I'm going to ask you for is that you sort of overlay it, and you can work with what you started with, right? But let's use this example. I'm just going to draw some lines up here. And let's say that I've got my circle there, and I'm starting to do some sort of pieces like this. Okay? So what I'm looking for you guys to do now is to bring in this notion of superimposition first. So you guys understand the pattern that I've got here. I know I did not take it all the way past it because I'm trying to keep the video somewhat short. So what we're looking for, and again, some of you already did this, is that you guys start to create levels of superimposition between this as a field condition and this as a field condition and this as a pattern or a polygon of sorts. Okay? So you guys are going to start to bring them and overlap them. And then in addition to that, you're going to start to perform subtractive processes where pieces of these can now start to sort of bite into other elements. Like, for example, that one was extended into there. Okay? And other elements can start to also subtract out. So for example, I could create something like that. Okay? In the end, you're going to have to figure out, after you've done this, you're going to have to perform an intuitive analysis of it and make a decision as to what constitutes figure and ground. All right? So again, I need to make sure that you guys are aware of what that means, right? So the classical sort of perception of, or the image of figure ground that a lot of people are familiar with is the, let's see, how's it go? I'm butchering this. I should probably call one up off the internet. Okay, but you can look at this and you can get this sort of dualistic view of what you're looking at. If you look at it one way, it looks like two people staring at each other. If you look at it in a different way, it looks like a chalice. It all comes back to what is figure and what is field. What is figure, what is ground, right? So if this is figure, that is, this is the solid thing, right? Then it looks like two people staring at each other. On the other hand, if we erase, oh God. On the other hand, if it looks like this, if this is figure and the other part is the ground, now the same thing looks like a chalice or some sort of a candelabra or something, right? And that's going to be the case here. After you start to do these explorations of overlap, of superimposing one sort of figure condition over another, you're going to have to later decide what is ground, what is not. Okay? So we're trying to link this back into what you guys have learned already in Design 1. And then in Design 2, some of you already caught the Metamorphosis project, which was trying to get you guys to understand that what you learned in Design 1 were not finite, sort of discrete things. It was a preliminary toolbox that was intended to be hybridized and overlap and change, and that you could develop more tools to put in your toolbox that can be particular to you. All right? Any questions about this? No? So some of the things that, again, I'm going to make sure that you guys understand that you have to fix, okay, is center point, object, radiating lines, and the initial part, the initial sort of geometric exploration, right? All of the radiating pieces should stop at the lines. Okay, and the circle is very easy. Most of you did not have problems with the circle, but where you had problems was with like the squares. There's a very interesting one out there where somebody just took hundreds of squares and just sort of collided them with each other and created an interesting composition, but it doesn't have a center. Okay, so I need you guys to fix that. Second thing is, please take a look at Angie and a few other people's density and start to get an idea of, like, you know, the smallest distance between two things might be, you know, 1/2 of an inch or the centimeter or something like your fingernail pinky, right? And maybe the biggest distance is like 2 or 3 fingers, and that when you look at it, there isn't too much of one thing and not, you know, too much of another. That it's got some level of balance. So those are 2 things that you have to fix before you go to the next step, which this next step you'll be doing with tracing paper. Okay, that makes sense? And actually, if you want to fix what you've done, right, you can also fix it with tracing paper over top of what you got, except if you didn't use the radiating lines to stop the pattern. Okay? So I am not a fan of the sort of tricky-dicky things that they do sometimes at other schools. So I'm going to tell you straight out. This is going to be used, right, as a starting point for generating your administrative building and the landscape around it. Okay? So right now, I don't want you thinking of this as a building at all. I want you thinking of it as pattern, and I want you studying, right, ways of making it more interesting. But eventually, this is going to get sort of repurposed. You're going to scan it, you're going to take it into Rhino, and you're going to generate, you know, form from it. Then after that, we'll try to apply it to generating a building and grounds. All right, questions?
The first exercise that you had us do with the 3 spots, were the 3 shapes or the radiating shapes, were they supposed to somehow affect each other?
Yes, that was the big oh shit moment in that first exercise was, what do I do when they start to get near each other? What happens, right? What happens when they start to come into conflict? Is there a harmonious way to kind of bring them together? I didn't feel like that one was really successful, so I simplified it, and I made you guys kind of focus on just one pattern. All right. I want to before what are we at on time?
Okay.
And then
All right, I gotta stop it.